It's a Mailbag Monday. We're talking about those Olympic officials and what the NBA can learn from them. The Celtics' financial future and fun with all-time teams right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Thanks to Blockbuster Brand, it's holiday season. Drop Drew in the mix. And 3 from KP, no, we not on the Knicks. Flushing competition like Al on Giannis. Juice and Big Zeus, still Beantown's finest. Banner 18 going up in the rafters. Watch the Steve's game in Locked On after. Karalis on the breakdown. Clutch like a tip from D. White on the breakdown. John on the mic documenting domination. Matter pen a back bay, it's all C's nation. Rain and Jace, how it started, raising banners, how we finish. Locked On Celtics pod, home of the winners. Peace.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast. It's right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Well, not every day for August and September. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 3 days a week. It might be every day, depending on what happens. Something might come up. So still subscribe, because it's going to be more podcasting than you'll get anywhere else. And you're still a Celtics fan, and you still want Celtics content over the summer. Whatever it is, we're going to be here. I will be here. I'm John Karalis. If you're new to the show, I used to play a long time ago. Now I'm a Celtics beat writer covering the team for Boston Sports Journal. I've also written a book called Built Different, a commemorative book celebrating the Celtics championship. Find it at bookstores, online, and in New England at various stores, wherever you go shop. Look around. Maybe it's there. It's at a lot of stores. I don't know all of them, but it's there. Pick up a copy. I'll have signed copies available on my website soon. It's a Mailbag Monday. We're doing mailbags basically every Monday, depending on in case maybe something else happens. But again, I don't like to tie myself into just this is always going to be a Monday. Like, if something happens, I move the mailbag around. But mailbag questions can be submitted to johnkaralis.com/mailbag. johnkaralis.com/mailbag. That's the only way I take the questions. That's your best chance of getting a question asked. Later on, we'll do all-time teams. In the second segment, we'll get into more of the Celtics' future. Let's start with Nathan, who asks, it seems like Team USA doesn't complain anywhere near what they do in the NBA. That's because it doesn't work in FIBA and effectively isn't allowed. Why can't that happen in the NBA? Why can't the NBA back the refs and end all this constant whining and chirping? Everyone would adjust. Like, I agree. I think, and this allows me to talk a little bit about the Celtics Team USA's last game against Puerto Rico, in which Drew Holiday did not play. He hurt his ankle in the previous game against South Sudan. It's fine. He's probably going to play in the elimination rounds here, which they play Tuesday. I forget who their first opponent is, but Tuesday afternoon at like 3:30. So, but I think Nathan is correct that I think that the NBA can take some notes from FIBA officials. And I'm going to focus this a little bit on Joel Embiid. I know, shocker, but Embiid's inability to be effective in this setting, I don't know if that's part of the injury recovery, if he's a little out of shape or what, but he's also just not as effective in this setting right now. I don't think it works for him. And partly because he's not getting any calls. He's barely getting any calls. And if he's not getting calls, then he's not that effective, or not as effective, I should say. He can still be pretty good because he's still Joel Embiid. He's still a very good basketball player. But the officiating, basically a short leash, knowing that you can get a tech and you can get an unsportsmanlike pretty easily, it does cut down on the complaining. They don't want to hear it. And I think the NBA should take note. I think the officiating in the Olympics really should make the NBA look at its own officiating and say, okay, we have to take some of this back. And it's not about not talking to the players. It's about not falling. First of all, not falling for the flopping, right? Just stop falling for the flopping. And if something gets out of hand quickly, and not like the little wave, don't police the Jayson Tatum wave like you do. But if guys get a little out of control, like Draymond Green, then give them the tech. There has to be some consistency here. A little wave is not as bad as half the stuff Draymond Green does on the floor. And as a fan, people don't want to see it, especially if as a Celtics fan looks at some of the texts that Jayson Tatum gets. You're like, how does that rise to a tech? Because, oh, it's a gesture. It falls into that little category. But with Draymond Green, with the histrionics, that's not a tech because, that's just Draymond. Well, one is much more disrespectful than the other. And that's Draymond, right? So don't fall for the flopping and don't let guys, like, emotions, fine. It's an emotional game. Let guys have a moment. But you gotta, in that heat of the moment, you look at them and be like, okay, you're going to have to calm down and talk to me, or else this is going to end up being a technical foul on you. So calm down and tell me what you want to say. I will listen. But if you're just going to scream at me, it's going to be a tech. So you make the choice. And that's the way to do it. You tell the guy, calm down, or you're getting a tech. And we can talk. I will listen, but the screaming has to stop. And I think in Olympic competition, that stuff goes away because guys know it's not going to be tolerated. And you're always on a national stage and you're representing your country. And there are elements there that make it so they don't want to be a spectacle. I think the NBA needs to look at that and kind of march toward more of that style of officiating. The flopping thing, like the Joel Embiid thing really stands out to me because if he can't be as effective as he is in the NBA, and that's mostly because he's not getting to the free throw line, and he's not playing a lot of minutes, right? And the style is different, but if he can't get to the free throw line, he's not putting up a lot of the numbers that he puts up in the NBA. And if a lot of that is because he's not, refs aren't falling for the flopping, that's a problem. That, to me, the NBA should be having conversations about, like, okay, this guy, some of these guys are big time floppers, and that's what's making them superstars. And all of a sudden, if you take some of that away, it's like a Trae Young thing where I feel like when they stopped calling some of the grifting stuff, jumping backwards into players, like his effectiveness kind of wasn't at that level that it used to be. And he can still score and he can still pass, but it's not at the level that it was at the beginning of his career. If you take away a player's ability to fool a ref, if he can't still be great, then that's an issue. And I don't want to see refs fooled anymore. So I'm 100% with Nathan. There needs to be a little bit of a change at the NBA level. Let's come back and talk Celtics. We'll talk about enjoying the ride and continuity. That's all coming up next. Today's show is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. That's the formula for winning championships. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. That should be Derek White right there. Guaranteed Fit, that's like a Derek White thing. eBay Motors. With eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need, the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the Jaylen Brown, the MVP, and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Thanks for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Go check out Locked On Sports Today, streaming 24/7 on YouTube, also on the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, It's all the big stories in sports with the local experts on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's real talk. It's not fake argument. And that, to me, is a big deal because fake arguments suck. Real talk is real sports talk that you can kind of sink your teeth into. So go check that out. Back to the mailbag. Paul says, can we, Celtics fans, stop worrying about luxury taxes and salary aprons and going into that are going into effect 3 years from now and all that stuff? 3 years in the NBA is an entire career for many players. 3 years before banner 18, the Celtics had Evan Fournier starting in the playoffs, getting beaten 5 by the KD Kyrie Nets. The NBA ages in dog years. 3 years is a lifetime. Just enjoy the summer. Ring ceremony, running the team back next season. Deep breath, everyone. Relax and enjoy the moment. Yeah, of course, Paul. Yes, enjoy the moment. However, this is part of it. This is all part of it. And when you look at why are they running this whole thing back? Why couldn't they add anybody? Why didn't they add anybody? Well, that is the salary apron stuff. And I feel like having that thing a couple years from now, 2-3 years from now, saying, hey, this is going to go away in a few years. To me, that's not saying, oh, everybody worry about that. To me, that's a way of hammering home your point, Paul. Enjoy this. Really enjoy it, because in 2-3 years, that is going to go away. We know that that's the cap. And I feel like talking about the future every once in a while is part of, if you understand the team dynamics and the pressures that they're under, and it's almost like preparing yourself for the inevitable, right? This, in a way, it's basketball mortality. If you understand your mortality and you say, I've only got a certain amount of time left, not to get dark, but like, that I've got to appreciate what I have. I got to appreciate this stuff. I got to understand that I don't have forever. This team doesn't have forever. So really just, yes, sit back, deep breath, relax, and enjoy this moment. But it's because that deadline is ahead. Because you can't sit there and be like, this guy, this happened. Well, no problem. Next year, we'll figure it out or whatever. Understand that Kristaps Porzingis is not going to be here for probably forever. He's not going to end his career here. I don't think anybody's going to end their careers here, but maybe somebody will. But this thing that's hanging over this team's head, it also affects the moves. It affects how Brad Stevens does his job. It affects, if something happens during the course of the season, how the team can maneuver around that. Can they maneuver around that? And you say, well, if they're going to have to make a trade, how do they do that? So the last point on this answer is that I really am trying to present the Celtics as the Celtics front office ownership as they see it a little bit. You know what I mean? So I'm just not sitting here saying, hey, celebrate the moment. I'm trying to give you a little bit of insight into, okay, the Celtics front office has this. This is their summer. This is their next couple of years. These are the decisions they're going to have to make. And if over the course of this year, if at the trade deadline, they do something that blows your mind, you're like, well, this is part of the thing that I was talking about, right? If it's not, maybe not this summer or this trade deadline, the next trade deadline, these are the types of things you just have to keep in the back of your head. The front office has a short-term, middle-term, long-term view, right? It's short-term. What do we need today to win? What do we need in September, October, November to win? A medium view. Okay, this season, let's look ahead to the draft. Let's look ahead to the next 2 drafts. Who stands out Is there a Cooper flag somewhere down the road that we're going to have to keep an eye on? And there's that 2-3 year plan. Like, do we make any moves based on that? And you do have to keep an eye on. And then there's the long term, right? The Jayson Tatum is going to retire someday. Jaylen Brown is going to retire someday. They are looking at, all right, 5 years from now, 7 years from now, 10 years from now, they do have guys that they're keeping an eye on. They're keeping an eye on free agency around the league. Who just signed a deal? Who has it? Who has an out coming up? They are looking at all of that stuff. They're looking at how their own contracts line up, and they're looking to see all these different things. So that all plays into how I try to present this team, because it's all intertwined. So that's part of why the 2-3 years from now stuff comes up and will continue to come up. But yes, relax, enjoy the moment, because the moments are fleeting. Michael says, I feel like there hasn't been enough talk about the importance of continuity and how the longer a group has been together, the better they get and the more they gel. I hear most podcasts, including this one, talk about how they should be good, but might take a little step back. But I feel like there's no reason to think they won't take a step forward. Their biggest hurdle is complacency and drive, which there's no better person to prevent other than Joe Mazzulla. And so that's his point. There hasn't been enough talk about the importance of continuity. And the continuity is important. That is what's going to help them get through some of the complacency stuff, right? And we're all just kind of, this is the off season where there's a little bit of guessing going on. There's a little bit of, hey, maybe this, hey, maybe that. And maybe they all come back and they all come back together. They all come back with the same motivation. Maybe they come back more motivated. Maybe they come back with less stress and they play looser and freer and they become a 65-win team or a 70-win team. I'm not saying they will. I think that's ridiculous to expect, but it's not out of the question to say they can improve on last year's win total because they're playing free and they understand what it takes to win. They could also be worse than last year's win total because they understand that they don't have to win the East by 14 games. And sometimes you just maybe Jayson Tatum does take a couple extra days off this year because he understands I got to be ready for this run. And I didn't have the same offseason that I normally do. So, and maybe that depresses their win total. Hard to say. But the group being back together, the whole group coming back, it does give them the advantages. I have mentioned on this podcast that it does give Joe a chance to be more advanced. You don't have to come back and explain terminology the same way you did when Holiday came in and Porzingis came in. That learning curve is obliterated. They can come in all on the same page and understand everything that they just went through. You can come in and start adding advanced things and trying new things. So the continuity is absolutely a huge thing. It's their biggest strength. It's their absolute biggest strength. But I am a believer in your biggest strength is also your biggest weakness. And you have to be mindful of that and prepare yourself for not relying too much, not taking certain things for granted because we're all back. It's all going to be fine. We're going to come back. We're going to hit the ground. Each year is a new year. Even with that same group, 13 of the 14 players are going to be the same. Success changes people. Money changes people. Who knows how all of these guys are going to be affected. It's not going to be the exact same locker room as last year, even though the players are the same. There are going to be differences in some of these players. There's going to be some subtle differences. And maybe it's not even a big deal, but there's a lot. There are many tentacles to all of this. But to your point, Michael, the importance of the continuity, it is huge. It is huge, but it does not shield them entirely from problematic behavior or problems in general. We'll come back. The overrated move of the summer and fun with a couple of all-time teams. Let's have some fun with it. That's coming up next. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. You want last-minute tickets to Major League Baseball? They're an authorized ticket marketplace of the MLB, so that makes getting tickets faster and easier to whatever baseball team you want to go see. I'm going to go see the Red Sox thanks to the Game Time app. You can also go to a concert, comedy show, theater, whatever. If those tickets are on sale online somewhere, there's a good chance you can find them on the Game Time app, and there's a good chance you'll save up to 60% buying those last-minute tickets. You can save even more with exclusive in-app flash deals on select seats ahead of the game or the event. You can save even more when you pick a section and you let Game Time choose the seats. That's called a zone deal. And if you toggle the all-in pricing, whatever you see there is the price you pay when you check out. Check out the seat views. They've got a panoramic view right from that seat, so you know what you're getting into. They've got a guarantee to make sure you get the lowest price. So go check it out. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON, LOCKED, LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Thanks for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Check out Locked On NBA. I host on Wednesdays with Jake Madison. Locked On NBA is still 5 days a week. So all the big stories around the NBA, Team USA, all of that. So we'll be there. I will be there with Jake. Check it out. Make that your second listen every day. Let's get back to the mailbag. Jack says, what do you think is the most overrated move of this summer? And I'm going to say it's DeMar DeRozan going to the Sacramento Kings. I question the fit. I question the how much better it's going to make them. I don't think that the Kings are materially better with DeRozan. So I know that that's being kind of, I know in Sacramento they're excited about it, and they should be excited about it. He's a good player. So he's not going to make them worse. I just don't know that he's going to make them better. And that's the big thing. I just think that Sacramento is going to kind of still be stuck in the middle, and this is going to be, it's going to be very difficult for them, which sucks because I want Sacramento to do well, but so that's the most overrated move of the summer. All right, here, let's have some fun here with this last question, which is broken up into two. So Hamed says, my question for you is to construct two Celtic all-time lineups with two different rules. Okay. For both of them, you need to construct a standard 1 to 5 positions. Okay. Team 1, all Celtics starting 5, but only how they played as a Celtic. Okay. That's easy. So it's basically the all-time Celtics starting 5, which, I go between Bob Cousy and JoJo White. I think I'll pick JoJo White. In my book, I picked Bob Cousy. To me, like, Cousy is an innovator. He's one of the first real big superstar in the NBA. But you know what? I'm going to go with JoJo just because I don't think the 70s era gets enough. So point guard is JoJo White. I'm going to put John Havlicek at the 2, Larry Bird at the 3, Kevin McHale at the 4, and Bill Russell at the 5. That's pretty good. It's pretty standard. That's a starting 5 that's going to win you many, many, many championships. But now let's have some real fun. Team number 2. All-time Celtics, this time anyone that played for at least one season as Celtics, you get them in their prime. Okay. So he says you can get prime Shaq, prime Gary Payton, prime Pistol Pete, etc. I'm gonna tweak this a little bit. Not only are we gonna say just guys who played at least one season, I'm gonna make an all-time team with guys who have only played one season with the Celtics. I'm gonna take the all-time single season, but they are in their prime. So here we go. My point guard is Gary Payton. Prime Gary Payton played one season with the Celtics. He played one season at the end of his career. Prime Gary Payton was awesome. The glove, defensive genius. Just so he's at my point of attack. The two guard is Pistol Pete Maravich, who played one season with the Celtics. Everybody here played one season. Pistol Pete, obviously a legend, showman. Those two guys in the backcourt, just unbelievable, right? Passing is going to be off the charts. Now, look at who they're going to be passing to. My small forward, Dominique Wilkins. Dominique Wilkins, I can't believe it's one of those weird things when you look at, like Patrick Ewing in a Sonics jersey or Hakeem Olajuwon in a Raptors jersey. Dominique Wilkins in a Celtics jersey is just, Hawks fans got to look at that and be like, ugh. So Dominique Wilkins is my 3. Prime Neek. Unbelievable. My 4, Rasheed Wallace. Rasheed Wallace could shoot, obviously defensive, maniac, won a championship with Detroit. And then Shaq as my 5. Prime Shaq for his one season with Celtics. That's my starting 5. Peyton, Pistol Pete, Dominique Wilkins, Rasheed Wallace, Shaquille O'Neal. That is an incredible team. In their prime, with that one season as a Celtic, that's amazing. But let's take it a step further. Let's build out a bench. Let's build a full team out of guys who have played one season with the Celtics. On my bench, Dave Bing, who is old school, but was incredible. Incredible. One of the best scorers you're ever going to find. Dave Bing had a season with the Celtics in his prime, deadly scorer. We just had Blake Griffin. Blake Griffin is on my bench. Jayson Terry, prime Jayson Terry as a shooter. Let's get Michael Finley in there as a shooter. How about Chauncey Billups? Remember his first year, his rookie year with the Celtics? So Chauncey, this bench is incredible. Tayshaun Prince, who played like 6 games with the Celtics, not even a full season. He had that one year. Remember that one year where Danny Ainge was just making trade after trade after trade after trade? Tayshaun Prince came in, played a few games, and then got traded away. And the funny thing is, he and Brad Stevens developed like this incredible relationship. I remember going to Summer League, and Brad was there with Tayshaun Prince. Like, this dude, a cup of coffee, he had half a cup of coffee with the Celtics. His relationship with Brad Stevens blossomed. It's incredible. And so we got what? 5, that's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-man rotation. I'm not going to 15. I'm going to 12. This is the best one because he only played one game for the Boston Celtics. But what a game it was. It's Joe Johnson. Remember COVID year Joe Johnson, that one game? Thank you, Joe Johnson, for coming in and giving me an opportunity to write something about that game. He came in, he hit a bucket. He got to talk to the media afterwards. It was like one more go around for Joe Johnson. It was really incredible. So that's my bench. So again, Gary Payton, Pistol Pete, Rasheed Wallace, Dominique Wilkins, Shaquille O'Neal as the starters. Dave Bing, Blake Griffin, Jayson Terry, Michael Finley, Chauncey Billups, Tayshaun Prince, and Joe Johnson as the bench. That is an incredible team of players who made not even 1 year, some of them, one game, a few games, a pit stop in Boston. They all had brief career in Boston, but they were all incredible in their primes. You are incredible as a listener, as a watcher. Again, if you want to submit your question, you go to johnkaralis.com/mailbag. johnkaralis.com/mailbag. That's how you submit your questions. I don't get to every question on the podcast, but I try to get to most of them. So make sure you're subscribed there. Make sure you send your questions in via that email. Subscribe so you can hear me answer the question and listen. If you're just listening on the show, not just listening, if you're listening, whatever you're doing, thank you so much. If you're watching the show on YouTube, ring the bell, hop into the comment section, join the party, join the conversation. Tell me what players you would have on your all-time teams. And then I would love it if you share the podcast. Tell everybody they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.